Thank you very much, Kevin, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Careers, Education and Training session as part of the conference. As always, we'd like to thank Thunder Bay CEDC for sponsoring today's sessions, along with the conference organizers. We're focusing on careers, education today, and training. Our presenters will speak for about 15 minutes, and there should be about 5 minutes for Q&A. If you have questions, use the raise your hand feature or post the questions in the chat. That would be fantastic. And apologies to those of you joining us for every session. I will be repeating this each time. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Lakehead University's Vice Provost of Indigenous Initiatives, Denise Baxter, and Lisa Primavesi, who is the Indigenous Access Program Coordinator with the Indigenous Initiatives Unit at Lakehead University. I think I'll skip the bios and let them get into telling you about some of the exciting stuff they're doing. So over to you both.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Bonjour, Denise Baxter, Indigenous Cause, Makwa Dodom, Martin Falls, and Donjiba. As Dr. Hollings had introduced me, my name is Denise Baxter. I work at Lakehead University. My community is actually located north of here in Martin Falls First Nation, along the beautiful shores of the Albany River. And some of you in that mining world might also know it as the area that the infamous Ring of Fire is located. And I am here with my colleague, Ms. Lisa Primavesi, who is working with students through our access programs and our Asin Certificate in Geology. So welcome. We are here to speak to you a little bit just about some of the programs that we offer. Lisa, if I could get you to flip the slide. We have a few different entry points into geology that we wanted to share with you. And oh, there we go. So one of the, obviously where we live, we have a large number of Indigenous First Nations communities, Métis communities within the Northwestern Ontario region. And so, you know, there's a lot of people here with a lot of interest in what's happening in the world around them and within their territories. But we do know that Indigenous people are severely underrepresented in STEM fields, both in the workforce and in academia, particularly in jobs that aren't labor positions. So that is something that we recognize and are aiming to change. With those continued talks that are happening, you know, north, as I mentioned, in the Ring of Fire, with the EA project for the road to Martin Falls and Webequie, you know, those types of things are, you know, really important that we have people that are able to engage in the work, engage in the negotiations, engage in the environmental assessment processes in a very meaningful way. And we want to make sure that First Nations people from those regions have the skills, the tools, and the know-how, and to do that in a really positive way. And so one of the things that started about 4 years ago, is several of the First Nations and Métis leadership from around the Northwest came to university and met with Dr. Hollings, who then brought on board Dr. Dawn Mills from UBC, and she worked here for 3 years on this project. And the community said that we want something built with an Indigenous lens, so that we can send our membership and our members, our community members, to take this course so that they have a baseline knowledge system as we work within this field of geology. So that is kind of where this whole thing started. And we'll move forward to the rationale for the entry points into geology and other sciences. So given that, you know, we know that this early development happened in 2018. We have been working with a big table of about 20 partners, and letters of support were received. We came to meetings together where people talked about what mattered to them, what was important, what the needs thinking forward of their communities would be. And we decided on the kinds of courses that we would have, how those courses would be built, the kinds of Indigenous content that would be in. And in June of 2018, the Matawa Chiefs Council had brought forward, under the leadership of my chief, Chief Bursach Nipanishkam, and they passed a resolution at the Matawa Chiefs Council to support this program. And then it was brought forward to the Assembly of First Nations with the chiefs from Niskanaga and Webequie. And so that was passed at the AFN meeting in the summer of 2018. And that really gave us the community support that we really needed to get things moving. So I'll pass it over to Lisa.
Good morning. So I came into this project just a year ago. I just started in this position in 2020, August of 2020, but and sort of came in at the tail end of the curriculum development. So tracking back on meeting minutes, and I could see that there was a lot of work put into choosing courses that should be developed. And one of the call outs from the representatives from Indigenous communities in this territory was that they wanted the curriculum to be infused with Indigenous knowledge and understanding of the land. And so the curriculum, the courses were chosen and the curriculum was set to curriculum experts who were expected to work on not changing any of the foundational pieces of those courses, but to create ways that those would be presented through an Indigenous lens. And they worked with Indigenous knowledge holders and experts as well to kind of help that process along. And that was happening from, I've got the date wrong, I just see it, from 2018 up forward to 2021, not backwards in time. And so when I entered the project, we were already sort of at the point of starting to see those draft versions being brought back to the curriculum experts here at the university. So the faculties or chairs of those departments were asked to come forward and to review the curriculum. And that was sort of happening over through last year to the point that now at this point, all of those curricula have been reviewed, updated if necessary, and received. So that's the point that we're at right now with the curricula. The other thing that we were putting some work into in this past year was looking at the program delivery. So one of the kind of key and unique features of the Asin Certificate is that it would be delivered through a part-time model up into communities remotely so that people could remain in their communities, could remain in their jobs, but still be preparing themselves to come to post-secondary education. And so the model that we're looking at rolling out is to start this fall with, and looking at sort of 2 courses in each semester, but taking a later spring and the summer off, because in communities, you know, that is a time to really get out on the land and to sort of participate in sort of traditional things. It's not really a time for going to school. So we thought we better consider that as well. So we're looking at rolling out in the fall of next year, Geology 1111, which is Planet Earth, a really foundational geology piece, as well as some math in order to come back into the university setting. One of the areas that's going to really need some development for folks is foundational understanding of math and the sciences broadly. So we've got the geology and math starting us off, and then sort of part 2 of both of those things in the winter. In the spring, 1 course only, and that's a professional writing course. And then bringing in chemistry, which the math from the year before is sort of foundational for these chemistry courses, and then a second math course. And that's a 2-year sort of look at things. And a person who completes this certificate, you know, that may be all that they want to do, and that may be lots for some mining companies to look at hiring them as having that foundation in post-secondary understanding. But it primarily sets them up really well to enter into an undergrad degree in geology, or quite frankly, other sciences if they're interested. But the geology piece, we're really hoping that that kind of catches their interest and that they will come to Lakehead. At that point, you know, the original understanding was that they would move here and come to school in person. But honestly, since this was all started, we've now had COVID. And so many things are running hybrid and online. So it actually, by the time that this runs through, if people choose to stay in their communities and continue their studies, that might also be very possible as well, which just broadens the audience for the program.
Thank you, Lisa.
Back to you, Denise.
Great. And I think, you know, as Lisa pointed out, this is a part-time program. So part of the work that we're hoping to, you know, explore perhaps with some of you is if you have employees that are working maybe in a labor position and you'd like them to upskill, this is a way that you can invest in your employees and hopefully, you know, build a longer term workforce by, you know, really upskilling their skills as they move forward and then building them into more of a professional role within your corporations. So one of the things that we are going through, because we are a university, is we must go through something called a Senate process. And this is a whole series of different academic committees that look at the program content, for rigor, for possibilities for the rules and regulations that go along with it. And then, so we're going through that process this year. And what that means is by the end of this process, it is our goal that this will be an official certificate program. It'll come with a paper similar to you would get a degree or a diploma in, but it will be a certificate. So that is one of the pieces that we have to go through. And then over this winter too, we'll be having a circle back with all of our community members again, just to really do a deep walk through all of the different kinds of courses, the content within them, and just do a little bit more, I guess, one final feedback round. It has been quite an iterative process. So we have circled back with our community partners through this process several times. When we look at Lisa's going to talk just about some of the programs that are complementary to this.
So as Denise mentioned, Asin is meant to be a part-time program, certainly in its first year. But when I started this position, and I know Denise had been thinking about this previously, I noticed that in our suite of access programs here at Lakehead, so we have an access program that enters into the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, and we have an entry program into the Bachelor of Science in Nursing program. But other than that, we didn't really have any sort of access points into the sciences here at Lakehead. And so when we started talking about Asin, we kind of came around to the idea that, wow, we could probably look at some of this curriculum and package it in a way that could be an access program for science. And so we started to develop the Indigenous STEM Access Program. So the idea here would be that this is for someone who's ready to be a full-time student and someone who's ready to attend here in person, although this year we are running it hybrid. But it's using many of the concepts and foundations of the Asin program. And it is our hope that in most of the courses, we can use some of that curriculum that was developed for the Asin program. So the STEM Access Program is an 8-month program that allows students to build their skills primarily in the sciences so that they can enter into first-year programs in a wide variety of programs in the faculties of Science and Environmental Studies, Natural Resource Management, and Health and Behavioral Science. So this program has now joined our suite of programs for access programs for Indigenous people. And we're piloting it with a small group this year with the idea of learning a whole bunch about what we need to support students in their studies of the sciences and hoping to build into a fuller cohort next year. So this program definitely required some consultation with all the deans of all those faculties. One of our ongoing goals is actually to create a further bridging program to go from the ISTEM Access Program to a pathway in engineering, which we haven't quite finished building yet because there needs to be a little more rigor in the maths and sciences to be able to make the leap to engineering, but that is definitely an interest. So we also had to carry out a whole bunch of consultation with representatives from admissions and enrollment services, making sure that we were creating an access program that was in line with all of the regulations of the university and that would fully prepare students to enter first-year science programs. The draft of this program was approved by the Senate's Advisory Council in June of 2021. So I'll just give a little caveat here that access programs are not accredited in the same way that degree, diploma, and certificate programs are. And so it might seem odd that we could put this together more quickly than the Asin certificate, but because the Asin certificate will be a formal certificate, post-secondary certificate, it has a slightly more rigorous process, whereas the access program is exactly that. It's a preparatory program. And so we were able to take some shortcuts. So the advantages of this are, of course, that we're able to pilot now and that some of the curricula that is in Asin is already being tested so that when we run Asin, we'll already have some knowledge and learning from that. So this program is currently being offered. Students are taking required courses in math, chemistry, English, and this UNIV 1016, that's an academic skills and critical thinking course. And the required courses take up 3.0 FCE or full credit equivalencies. And then students in this program choose electives for another 1.0 full credit equivalency in their area of interest. So just some examples, of course, geology is one of those options. But we also have some students interested in biology. We had some interest this year in kinesiology, and someone is in the stream to take anthropology, but from a sciences perspective rather than an arts perspective. So this program is really flexible. And this program tops out at 4.0 FCE. So because of the heavy content in the maths and sciences, it was determined that we would not go, excuse me, with the regular 5.0, which is the normal carrying load for a university student, but we're going to go with 4 here and look for quality versus quantity and give them the extra time to take part in. There are extra tutorials, extra study times being offered to support the students' skills in these challenging programs.
Great, thank you. And just to wrap up, just to bring you back to the Asin certificate in geological studies, really the goal is to provide that foundation in geology that people can take part-time while they're in their own communities or working part-time, and decide then what they would like to do and how they would like to utilize that education moving forward. And then also the Indigenous STEM Access Program is a full-time preparatory program that really builds a foundation for study in geology and other sciences. And that is an 8-month program that runs the traditional September to April. But both of these programs will take the students moving into geology or other sciences as they wish. So that is the conclusion of the work that we've been doing at Lakehead to work with our First Nations and Métis communities in the region to make sure that we have more accessible ways for students to gain that experience and those learnings. Thank you.
Denise and Lisa, outstanding. So many positive comments, and I think that there's a lot of interest in the program as well. So, Pete, did you want to get things underway here with the question portion?
Sure. I can't actually see any comments in the chat, Kevin. So if, you may have to read those out if there are any.
One of the
have a
questions.
question there from Alexandra. So maybe.
Yes. Hang on here. We'll see here, Alexandra. Here we go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's been great. My name is Alexandra Consmedias, and I am a rep for the Métis Nation of Ontario. I was just wondering if these presentations could be sent out after the conference is over. I'm very interested in getting this out to our education and training department. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And we did have representatives from the Métis Nation when we have been working through this process. I know you've had some change in staff. I've had a chance to do some work with some of your colleagues over the past few months, but we can absolutely share that. And I'm sure, as Dr. Hollings mentioned, that this will be shared out with video as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
If I could just add that, Alexandra, if you are interested in making a direct contact, I'm hoping that maybe Pete or Kevin could, if you can share my email with Alexandra, I'd be happy to speak with you as well. Because if you ever want an in-person presentation about this to any of your communities or representatives, I'd be really happy to do that for you.
Absolutely, Lisa. Thank you so much. I will look on Lakehead's website and get your contact information. I really appreciate it.
Very good, Marcy.
And failing that, you might find it easy to find Denise or myself on the website, in which case we'll be happy to pass you along. So the Lakehead University website can sometimes be a challenging thing to navigate through. So we can help in any way, just ask. Thank
you so much, Dr. Hollings. I appreciate it.
We did have one question from Ryan Weston. Ryan, what does Asin stand for?
Asin is a Anishinaabe or Ojibwe word, meaning it's a rock. It's a big, like a single rock. So we had talked with some of the community. My dad was one of them. And we were talking about different ways that we might utilize that word, but he had recommended to us that we just use the word Asin. Because with the language, there's probably 15 or 20 different words that could be used with extensions. And he thought this just kept it simple.
Terrific. Well, we excuse me, we do have another presentation starting at 9:50, which is approximately 5 minutes from now. So Peter, if we did have additional questions, I could pass them on. We don't seem to have any. So Peter, do you want to wrap this one up and get us teed up for the next one?
Yeah, so again, thanks everyone for joining us here. We'll encourage you to leave this session, go back to the main web page and reconnect to the next talk. And we'll look forward to seeing you there in a couple of minutes. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Rich, bye now.
Thanks, everyone.